who don't know Les Glassman, he's the gentleman who's been up and down all over behind the camera for the last 2 weeks, during our celebration and during the exhibition. Les will tell you a little bit about himself and about the program he's producing for us tonight. And I'm changing the format because I'm thanking him in advance for all that he's done to do this for us, and also for bringing us the refreshments which we really enjoy after the show. So I'm handing you over to Les.
Annette, thank you so much, and I want to thank you all for coming this evening. It's really so nice to see. Is this clear? Okay, thank you all for coming this evening. Okay, thank you. Okay, is this a little bit better? Okay. I really want to thank Annette, and I want to thank you all for coming this evening. I really feel that Protea, it's like a second home. I've been here this will be my third time in the last 3 weeks. But being here for the 25th birthday celebrations was wonderful. It was really very special. And the opening of the Golden Medina, it was magnificent. And I hope tonight you'll enjoy as well. Before we start, I'd like to ask, by show of hands, how many of you have relatives or come from Lithuania or Latvia? Okay, not surprising, it's South African Protea, but the majority do. Okay, how many of you have heard of Shwene Sugihara? Yes, Shwene Sugihara. Okay, after tonight, you will know him pretty well. Okay, have any of you heard the name Ganor? I'll just repeat, Ganor. Okay, so we have two, that's okay. Very interesting, very interesting. Okay, so do you read the Jerusalem Post? Because it's very topical. Today, when I opened the Jerusalem Post this morning, they had an article about Shaked visits the city where the Japanese Schindler helped refugees from the Holocaust. She's the Justice Minister, Ayelet Shaked, and she was in the city of Tsuruga. Tsuruga is in Japan. That's the city where the Jews came from Lita on their route to Shanghai. But how did this all happen? So I was very fortunate that I was in Lithuania and Latvia and Belarus a year and a half ago, and we went to Kovno. And in Kovno, we went to a very special place. It was the Consul General of Japan, and there I managed to, I'd heard about Sugihara, but I managed to obtain this video, which we're going to be watching part of it tonight. It's a 2-hour video, so we're not going to watch the whole video, but when you watch the video, I want in the back of your minds for you to think, why did he do it? And why did he do what he did? You'll see it's quite a fascinating story. It's amazing because it was unique. He's the only Japanese to be recognized as Chasidei Umatalam, righteous amongst the Gentiles. And he saved, as you'll see in the movie, over 6,000 Jews. But why did he do it? He lost a fortune. And you'll see in the movie, so I don't want to give it away. But the main question that I want to ask, and I want you to think about, is the reason why he did it. And after tonight, I hope you'll have a good answer. So without further ado, the movie, I just want to show you, we'll watch, it's actually very, very interesting, this movie. Sugihara was not known in Japan until his death. He actually was an unknown person. But when he passed away, when he died, the Israeli ambassador in Japan went to his funeral. And they say that there were a reporter, he wanted to know, what is the Israeli ambassador doing at the Japanese ex-diplomat's funeral? And they wanted to know, why was there an Israeli ambassador at an ex-Japanese, a fired Japanese diplomat's funeral? And the story came out. And then producers thought, this is a most incredible story. And they produced this movie, and this aired on Japanese television. And after the movie aired on Japanese television, instantly, Sugihara became a hero. And what's amazing, and I've actually done this quite often, when I was in Indonesia, there was a Japanese stamp dealers, and I asked them, have you heard of Sugihara? And they do, they have heard. And if I see tourists here, and I've got a Japanese patient, I ask them, have you heard of Sugihara? Most Japanese know Sugihara, and they know him well. There was a stamp made of Sugihara from Japan. He's now regarded in Japan as one of the top 10 heroes of all time in Japan. The sad thing in Israel, if you ask people, have you heard of Sugihara? Okay, Beth Protea, which is unique, the majority do know, but the majority outside Beth Protea, unfortunately, don't know. And it's a real pity, because he stands unique through the history of the Shoah. So this movie, it's in Japanese, but it's got English subtitles, and it's really quite a phenomenal movie. We're not going to watch the whole part, we're going to watch like the first part, and then I wanted you to see the end part. This is a book that was written by Sugihara's wife, and we'll just discuss after the movie a little bit about this book. But if you feel that you want me to stop anything, please feel free, and then at the end I'll just explain the reason why he did it, and then it's open to questions, and afterwards we'll have refreshments. So once again, I really want to thank you all for coming this evening, and I hope it's something that is very topical as well. I don't know if you heard the news in Poland. They just had the independence, and there were 60,000 that marched in Warsaw, and they had placards saying Jew-free Poland. So what happened is real. It's happening today. And you know, I just saw this book this is in the library over here, with Love Lithuania. I've just gone through each page briefly, but I don't see any pictures of Jews or shuls or anything to do with Judaism. So you can go through this book of Lithuania, and you wouldn't even know that there were Jews that once lived there. So it's actually, I think this is really important, that the message of Sugihara, what he stood for, what he did, that we tell our families and our friends, and Karasa Tov, we must have tremendous gratitude for such a tremendous icon and a hero. So I want to thank you all. We're going to watch the movie, and I hope you get a lot out of it. Thank you very much. Okay, so it's a very heavy movie to watch, and it goes on for nearly 2 hours, but this movie, actually when it was aired on Japanese television, it actually changed the country, and from being unknown, he became one of the 10 greatest heroes in Japan. Okay, so now the question remains, why did he do it? You know, he had compassion, but basically he was a consul general in Lithuania. Japan was allies with Germany. He telexed Japan 3 times to the Foreign Office, and they declined 3 times. He was basically committing treason by doing it. And he knew that if he did it, he'd be fired. And that's exactly what happened. He'd be fired. He'd lose his job, his honor. For Japanese, honor is everything. It's the most important thing, the honor. Anyway, he did it. But why did he do it? So I heard a most incredible story that I couldn't believe, and this is what I heard. And it's one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard. When the Jews came from Poland, when the war broke out and Nazi Germany invaded Poland, a lot of Jews moved over the border and went into independent Lithuania. And they were in Vilna, in Kovno, in all the different areas of Lithuania. And they were like kind of destitute, they were refugees there. And what happened was, there was a little boy called Ganor. I asked you if you had heard of him. He was 12 years old. And his parents had given him Hanukkah geld for Hanukkah. And a woman knocked on the door, and he was at home, and she said, have you got any money to give to the Jews, that the refugees that have come over from Poland? And all the money that he had, he gave her. He gave her everything that he was given for Hanukkah geld. A few days later, he was walking in Kovno, in Kaunas, in Lefka Street. It's Lefka's Avenue, it's the main street in Kovno. And he sees a poster, and the poster is for a movie Laurel and Hardy. Have you all heard of Laurel and Hardy? You know, when you mention Laurel and Hardy to the youngsters today, they don't know what you're talking about. But when you say Charlie Chaplin, one was a fatty and one was a thinny. Anyway, he wanted to see the silent movie of Laurel and Hardy, but he had no money. But he had a very close connection with his aunt. His aunt had a confectionery shop. Her name was Anushka, and he was very close to her. So he went to go visit his aunt to ask if she could give him a few little copies, a bit of money that he could go see the Laurel and Hardy movie. He goes inside the shop, and inside the shop there's an Oriental fellow. Now, what's interesting in Lithuania, you don't really see many non-Lithuanians. It's mainly just Lithuanians. There are very few Oriental people there, or blacks, or any other. It's mainly Lithuanians. But there in the shop was this Oriental fellow, Sully, this little Sully, who was 12 years old, had no idea who he was. Anyway, he asks his aunt if she can give him some money to watch the movie. And she tells Sugihara that this is my nephew. And Sugihara, as I think you saw in the movie, he was not only the consul general, he knew a lot of languages, and German was one of the languages. And part of his position going to Lithuania was to kind of spy on the Germans, because he was fluent in German. So he understood the Yiddish. And when he heard Solly ask his aunt for some money, he said to little Solly, I'll give you the money. And Solly said to him, I can't take money from you. You're not my family. So Sugihara says to Solly, I'll be your uncle. Now, when I tell this story to people, when I relate the story, when I go back to South Africa and I work as a dentist, the Afrikaans kids call me not tantarts or dentist, they say worm. Like here in Israel, people say reb, or they'll say, but uncle is a sign of respect. But Solly took it literally, and he said, if you're my uncle, you have to come over to our house, we're lighting the Hanukkah candles. And Motzei Shabbos, he actually did. He came over to their house, and it was the first time that he had ever been in a Jewish house, and he immediately connected with the Ganor family. And something which is very dear to me, Solly collected stamps. And Sugihara said to Solly, please come to the consul and I'll give you some stamps. I get a lot of letters coming from Japan. And Solly used to go there and he used to get the stamps and used to play with Sugihara's children. And they say because of this connection that Solly made by inviting Sugihara to his house for Hanukkah, the Jews, the Polish Jews and the Bochrim from the Mir Yeshiva, you know, the whole Mir Yeshiva intact was saved. The whole yeshiva, it was amazing. It was in part of Poland, they came into Lithuania, but they came to Sugihara because they had heard that there was a diplomat that had a kind heart, and he had a kesher, he had a connection with the Jewish people. So what remains is, how do we know that the story is true? It's the most incredible story. That a little boy, because he gave a bit of charity, because he asked, because he invited somebody to his house, basically could have changed Jewish history. By Sugihara issuing, him and his wife, by them issuing the visas, they issued 2,000 visas till the very last day. Till, you know when you saw in the movie where the Russians came and they said, you have to close the consul because Russia occupied Lithuania and it wasn't independent anymore. So because he did what he did and he issued 2,000 visas till the very last moment, he was writing visas while he was on the train. He was writing visas and throwing them out the window, and then he even gave the pad of the visas so people could write it, and a few people were saved by empty visas with a stamp. 6,000 Jews left Lithuania and were saved. They went to, it was interesting, they went to Japan, to the city where our justice minister is now, in Tsugara, and what happened there is that the Japanese official asked a representative of the Jews, and his name, he was Amshon of Arabi actually, he said, why do the Germans hate you so much? So he was a very clever rabbi, he said, I don't know why the Germans hate us Asians. And the Japanese official really understood that, and by that answer, they say it's very possible he gave him authority to stay in the city in Japan, and then he gave him authority to go to Shanghai, because Japan had occupied part of China and Shanghai was now part of Japan. And they went to Shanghai, and there are many families in South Africa that have their family that came from Shanghai. Many families, I met many families that their grandparents lived in Shanghai and was saved by Sugihara. So I'm going to show you now, when I heard the story about Soli Ganor, I was blown away. I really was. And the person who told us the story is Hugh Reichman. He's very passionate about Jewish history. When I showed the movie about Protea, he was the scholar in residence. So he told me that he actually phoned him, and he lives in Israel. He's 89 years old. So I said, I have to see him. I phoned him immediately, and I went to visit him on Motzei Shabbos. And I interviewed him, and you're going to see a bit of the interview. But he's 89, he lives here in Ramat HaSharon. He wrote a book called Light One Candle. I don't know if any of you have seen this book. It's the most incredible book. But inside Sugihara's wife's book, she wrote a book called Visas for Life. You can get these books, I got them on eBay. You can get them on Amazon, on eBay. But both these books were at Barnes & Noble. Now inside the book, there's a picture of Soli, and she gives a little explanation, which you'll see on the movie. But what's interesting about this book from Sugihara's wife, do any of you remember Walter Mondale? Yeah. He was the Vice President of America, and he was also the ambassador to Japan. So at the back of the book, and you can look at it afterwards, he writes something about this book. And he says Sugihara stood out. He was the only person that not only didn't he gain, but he actually lost. Because he did lose his job, he had no money, he died, he had to go to Russia to find employment, and it was very sad. He died unknown and basically penniless. But his legacy lives on. So it's a treat, because you're going to see, in my opinion, an amazing person. So what happened with Soli, he survived, and after the war, he lost his mother and his brother. They died during the war. His father remarried, and they got visas to go to Canada. And they said, you must come to Canada after the war, when he was displaced in the displacement camp. His whole story is in this book, Light One Candle, which it's just, every page is a masterpiece. Anyway, Soli said, I don't want to go to Canada. When we needed the visas, it wasn't there. Now my country needs me. So he came to Israel, well, to Palestine, and he fought in the War of Independence. Somebody to have gone through what he went through, and then still to come here and to fight for his own people. And he's like such a hero, because he fought and he nearly died in the War of Independence. So you're going to see tonight a real hero, and the name Soli Ganor. I hope you don't forget, and we really need to tell other people about this remarkable person. So if you can just hold on, I'm going to put it on. This is the interview that I did, and I just want to show you something before I start with the interview. You all know, you've all heard of Mozambique? Yes. Okay, so if this comes on. Okay, so here, it's amazing. Somalia and Mozambique, these are stamps. I collect stamps, and some collected stamps, but these are stamps that were put out by Mozambique. If you would like, thank you so much.
Sorry.
It's quite amazing that Mozambique put out a miniature sheet, first day cover of. Okay, can you see? This is from Mozambique. It was issued in Mozambique, and the one is in Somalia, and the one where I'm pointing is from Lithuania. Israel also brought out an issue with the 5 righteous diplomats, and Sugihara is part of it as well. But that's just on the side. Okay. Now you saw in the picture, in this picture, sorry, it's you and.
This is in San Francisco. This was 2005.
You had a very close connection with the family.
Yeah. My childhood with her. She was invited in all kind of places, and she took me with her. They really looked like a couple.
It's amazing. And you spoke at Barnes & Noble, and had so many different book launches and different organizations. Now this is, I did a long interview, but this is a short interview with Soli. Called Visas for Life.
By the people, so yeah, that's Sugihara's wife wrote the book.
And it's written also in Japanese. This is the English
Original
version.
in Japan.
And here she mentions you in the book.
Inside is a picture of me. Look what she writes there. Can you see what she writes?
So if you could read it, it would be wonderful to...
Kyuni Sugihara's decision to issue visas may have been influenced by a 14-year-old Jewish boy named Ganor. He invited Mr. Sugihara to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah in 1939. With his family, this may have been Sugihara's first contact with a Jewish family in Kansas. And here a picture of Jews in Kobe, of survivors. See in the bottom.
There's the bottom, and there's the picture of you. What she mentioned, Sonny, that is what I mentioned to you, that you made history. And you changed the course of history in your kindness and that you gave your money away, and then you went to your aunt, asked for money to see the Laurel and Hardy. That influenced people's lives, and you had a big part, a big role to play in what happened in history with Sugihara.
I'm glad that I did what I did.
And when you read what Mrs. Sugihara wrote in that book,
Mrs. Sugihara,
when she wrote about you in the book, and did you know that she was going to write this in the book?
no idea. She asked me for a picture from before the war, after the war. That's what I had, so I gave her this picture. She put it in the book.
And reading it, this is confirmation of...
Yeah, it's written confirmation of what I'm telling you.
It's unbelievable. Sonny, it is incredible. It's true, it's the MS, and we are in awe of what you've done and what you've achieved, and you can be very proud. And like I said before, you must just please God for the new year. You must have all of Hashem's blessings.
Thank
To
you.
be gesund, to well, nachas, brocha, and good health. And may you continue in what you do and in your writing. And please God, your book on your father should be published, and we'll all read it. And we all appreciate so much what you've done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a book. It's about my cousin named Irina. Irina was like the professor.
And she invited you.
She's the one who invited me. She's the one who has a big influence in the Lithuanian. The Lithuanian government, they sent to meet the Queen of England, they sent her.
And she's living in Vilna today.
Yeah. They wrote a book, a French guy wrote a book about her. Yeah, so it's my mishpocha.
And sorry, if you're looking back, what would you would have done anything different? Looking back on those days and those events? Is there anything?
Yeah, I would tell my father to use the visa to go to America. That's what I would do. He should have listened to Sugihara when he told him to go.
It was like Sugihara was like a prophet.
Sugihara said, told me when I came to see this fence, it was in July, said, tell your father it's time to leave.
And you told your father?
I told my father, but he wanted to sell the business.
Sonny, that's unbelievable. It really is.
If you want to find something about the Maria,
You saw that picture. Did you see the picture in the background?
Yes.
That was Sadi selling buns in the ghetto in Kovno. Now, what happened with Sadi, unfortunately, he did go through the war. He went through the ghetto. He went through hell, and at the end, he went to Dachau. And at the very end, can you believe it? The Germans knew they were losing, and they still marched. They still marched the Jews. They still wanted to get rid of all the Jews. It's lawyer man. How can it be? Like today in Poland, where they have a celebration for the independence, and part of the placards are Jew-free Poland.
Yeah.
How many Jews are there today in Poland? But it still bugs the people that there's some Jews living in Poland. It's like, how can we understand this? What's amazing with Sadi, he did go on it was called the Death March from Dachau, and you will not believe who saved him. I'm going to show you a picture here, and Sadi will explain.
Away from the States to accompany us to Japan. This is in Japan, at the Sugihara Park. These are the guys from from the Japanese-American units that saved our lives. The guy who is talking and standing next to him is called John Sukarno from Hawaii.
And these are the ones that signed your book?
These are the guys who signed my book, yeah.
And they came to Israel as well?
Yeah, those who came to Israel. And came with Dov Shelansky.
Unbelievable. This is a picture. Last year, I don't know if it wasn't really, unfortunately, it wasn't really publicized in the press here, but Sugihara's grandson came to Israel, and in Netanya, which isn't so far from here, on South Netanya, they named the street after Sugihara. There's also a street in Yafo, and I think there might be other streets, but they named last year a street, Sugihara in South Netanya, the new part of Netanya, near the beach, and his son came here, and this is the son, together with Sadi in his apartment, holding the picture when Sadi was a little boy in the Kovno ghetto. And what happened is afterwards, the grandson, went to the Mir Yeshiva, and they met with the Rabbonim. The Mir Yeshiva today is the biggest yeshiva in the world, and the Mir Yeshiva owes everything to Sugihara. But he went to the Mir Yeshiva, and the mother of the Amshanova Rebbe in Beit Vegan went there. She was very old and she passed away, but before she passed away, she was given an invitation to meet with the grandson, and she went, and she was very ill, but people said, how come you're going? And she said, we owe our lives. There's Karasa Tov. We really have to show gratitude. And what was interesting is that she was interviewed on Japanese television. Japan took a television crew to video the naming of the street and to video the meeting at the Mir. But unfortunately in Israel, and it's so sad, it was hard, it went very unnoticed. Such a major event. Okay, I want to show you something also which is also quite interesting. If you look, this is a picture. You are with the German president.
Yeah, I was invited to the German parliament, and they introduced me to the German president.
And what year was this, Sadi?
It was in 2009, I think.
And Sadi, can I ask, when you went to Germany, it must have been also a very difficult trip to go to Germany?
It was easier to go to Germany than to Lithuania. Somehow, I don't know why.
And when you went to the German parliament, you were very well received?
Very well.
What's amazing is this was in Sadi's study. He just turned 90. He has a Facebook page. He's very active on Facebook. Somebody who's 90, it's amazing. He emails, it's incredible. And for me, I don't know, it was very, very special coming here this evening. But just before this morning, I went to the post office and I'd ordered the book, because you can't get it here. But this is the diary of Solly Ganor in Kovno, and it arrived this morning. So you can see it afterwards, but it's got pictures about, you know, when they trying to liquidate the ghetto and the 7th fort. It's horrendous what happened. And what I found when I went to visit Solly, he was so positive, and he's so, when you see his Facebook, I mean, this is somebody who could have said, I had so much, I need to just retire and go on a desert island or something, but he's so active, and he speaks, and he writes, and they're going to be making a movie about him. So we look forward to that, and we just pray that he'll have good health and many more years. Okay, now I just want to, the problem is he doesn't really leave his home now because he's a bit frail, so he's in Ramat HaSharon, but it's not all negative. Last year, they had an event called Letter to Haim, and the deputy ambassador, I met the ambassador as well, the Lithuanian ambassador, and the foreign minister of Lithuania came this year, a few months ago, and he had a meeting in the King David. It was a breakfast, and he spoke very nicely, where he admits that Lithuanians were also involved in what happened, unfortunately, and he said we had to take responsibility. I did put that on YouTube. They asked, I was there, and I managed to video the talk with everybody's permission, and you can go onto my YouTube. That talk that the foreign minister gave of Lithuania is on YouTube. But this is a talk where they invited the deputy ambassador of Lithuania, and I think it's quite interesting because it's not all negative, and I want to show you something which I was actually quite taken aback with. This was a talk that he gave in Jerusalem, I hope it was. Yeah.
Mr. Romanas Davidonis, please.
Good evening. I'm sorry, Ambassador is not able to come here because he's a leader now. First of all, thanks a lot for invitation. As a person who was born in Vilna, as a person who was spent almost all his life in Lita, I'm very happy, and also as a person, as a deputy ambassador in the State of Israel, I'm very pleased to be here because this movie sends a quite clear message about connection between my country and the State of Israel. When we speak about my country, there is one thing I want to mention very clear. I was born in 1969. My childhood, my youth, I spent in the Soviet Lithuania. And I have to say very clear that at that time the Holocaust was not an issue to be encouraged to be debated. Only after 1991 we discovered all black pictures of our history, and we clearly acknowledge what happened, especially at the beginning of the Second World War. We clearly acknowledge what kind of loss happened in Lithuania, and we clearly acknowledge that not only Nazis but also my countrymen, my fellow say people from my country, Lithuanians, they also participated in these horrible crimes. Well, once again, the main point which I wanted to mention, that only that Lithuania became free and independent state, we had opportunity, and we faced this abyss. I would say abyss is all these black pictures which took place in Lithuania. I want that's the main thing which we think now is yes, we acknowledge it happened, and it's very important to commemorate this loss, and of course it never happened again in my country or anywhere in the world. So once again, I want to finish on that note, and once again thank you for the invitation, and looking forward to spend this evening watching Christmas. Thank you very much.
That was quite a remarkable speech that he gave. That he said he admitted that the Lithuanians were accomplices in many of the atrocities. That it's coming from the the government of Lithuania. And also, just to end also on a more positive note, the memorials that you see in Lithuania today, our family came from a place called Mariampol. I don't know if anyone in the audience has any family from Mariampol. It's south of Kovno. There are many signs saying this is where the synagogue used to be, this is where the cemetery was. They've kind of tried to re-establish the cemetery. They've got tombstones which they've re-erected. And unfortunately, the place where the mass murdering happened, there's many signs in both Lithuanian and in Hebrew. So they do acknowledge it, and we just pray that, as the ambassador said, we must never forget, and it should never happen again. So on a very, very, I just want to thank you all, and I hope it's been enlightening, and I hope you'll remember the name, my hero, Sonny Ganor, he really is, and you need to look at the books that he did. Just, I want to just mention, you've all heard of, she's in the news, Nancy Pelosi. You've heard of her?
Yeah.
So she writes actually in Sonny's book. So this book, it should be in every library. It's such a phenomenal, every single page of this book really is, it tells the history of our people and the history of the Shoah. And also the Visas for Life. If you can try get it, it's a remarkable book. It's the whole story of Sugihara, and well, I hope that you, well, it's not something to enjoy, but I hope it's been enlightening, and I hope you gain something. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, there will be refreshments outside. I know the hour is late, but you're free to, I'll stay behind, you're free to ask, and if I can help in any way, I'll be glad to. Thank you so much for coming.
You mentioned that he died poor, he was a pauper. What surprises me is that he was known about it for many years, and why was there no attempt to support him with finances from Israel and from people who survived because of him? Why was there no collective movements to help him?
Okay, very good question from Mark. You're all welcome to have refreshments outside. The question is that because he helped so many people, why didn't they track him down? Why didn't they help him financially and in other ways? Because he was so ashamed of being fired, he actually changed his name. So on the records, and the Foreign Ministry of Japan wouldn't give information about him because they felt he was a disgrace, what he did. He committed kind of treason. So people couldn't even know who he was. What happened is after he died and after the burial, the Israeli government did something that we can all be proud of. His son, they said to the family that we will pay for his son to be educated at Hebrew University. And his son actually came. And he went to Hebrew University, and the Israeli government paid for his education. And his son's got a very close connection with this country. He comes here often. And he said he knows Hebrew because he was at Hebrew University. And then later, when after he passed away, his wife she lived quite a few more years on. People that he had saved met the wife. And in this book that she writes, she speaks about many of the families that they saved went to visit her, and they went to Japan, and she was invited to America. So it's a wonderful question that you asked him about. But he was so ashamed that he had no honor that he actually changed his name. And it wasn't from a lack of trying. People were desperate to help him.
The question of the evening is, why did he do it?
So, that little boy that gave him, that invited him to come to his house, he saw what a Jewish family was. And he was so taken aback by this family that he felt tremendous pity, and he felt connected to the Jewish people. So just as Sugihara's wife writes, that it's very possible that that meeting, coming to his house, influenced him to do what he did.
Also, when he was asked, he said, because it was the right thing.
And it was the right, he said, they said, why did you do it? He said, because it was the right thing to do. He got no money from it, he just, but you know what, he got He got eternal gratitude that will live on forever and ever. Thank you so very much.